You sit down. You stop talking. Your face changes. Your voice gets quieter. Maybe you cry, maybe you don't. And somehow, the animal in the room notices. A dog walks over slowly. A cat watches from the doorway. A horse lowers its head. It feels like they understand. But do they? Can animals actually read your emotions? Or is something else going on entirely? Here is the strange thing. You think of your emotions as something private, something happening inside your head, invisible to the world. But your body does not agree. When you feel something strongly, grief, fear, anger, anxiety, your body starts broadcasting. Your face shifts, your posture changes, your voice drops in pitch, your breathing slows or tightens, your muscles behave differently, your hormones change, your sweat changes, your whole chemistry shifts. You are not hiding anything. You are leaking everything. And for animals that evolved to read exactly these kinds of signals, you are very easy to read. Start with dogs. Dogs are the strongest example, and for good reason. They have lived alongside humans for at least 30,000 years. That is not just a long time. That is long enough for their brains to be shaped around us. Studies show that dogs can distinguish between happy and angry human faces, not just their owners' faces, any face, including faces they have never seen before. When researchers showed dogs photographs of angry human expressions, the dogs' heart rates went up. They also turned their heads to look at the angry image through their left eye specifically. That is not random. In mammals, the left eye sends information to the right hemisphere of the brain, the side specialized for processing threats. The dogs were doing something organized. They were categorizing a human expression as dangerous. And there is more. In another study, when owners genuinely experienced sadness, their dogs gazed at them less, jumped on them less, and became less responsive to basic commands. The dogs were behaving differently, not because they were told to, but because something about the human had changed. Now here is where it gets genuinely strange. Emotions change your body chemistry. When you are stressed or afraid, your adrenal glands release cortisol and epinephrine. Your heart rate climbs, your blood pressure shifts, your sweat changes composition. And dogs can smell it. In one study, researchers collected breath and sweat samples from people before and after a stress test. Forced mental arithmetic, no phone, no paper, count backward from 9,000. Those stress samples were then presented to dogs. The dogs that smelled the stressed samples became more cautious, more hesitant, more pessimistic in their behavior. They were reacting to an odor, not a person, not a face, not a voice, just a smell. And that matters because it tells you something important about what is actually happening here. A dog may not know that you lost someone. A dog may not understand why your face looks the way it looks, but it may smell that your body has changed. It may detect that something in your chemistry is different. To a dog, sadness may not be a story. It may be a smell. What about when the dog approaches you? When it walks over, leans against you, nuzzles you when you cry? There is research on this too. In one study, dogs approached people who were crying, not just their own owners, but strangers, in a submissive way. They nuzzled, they licked, they did not run to their owner instead. This looks something like empathy. But researchers are careful. The better explanation may be emotional contagion. That is a simpler, older process. When you are distressed, the dog detects that distress and becomes distressed itself. The emotional state spreads, and a distressed dog seeks contact. It is not a therapy session. It may be more like a ripple, one emotional state touching another. Cats are a different story. Cats are harder to read, harder to impress, and significantly harder to study. But they are not emotionally clueless. Research shows that cats respond more positively to smiling owners than frowning ones. They stay closer. They behave more affectionately. They spend more time in contact. And in a separate study looking at smell, cats exposed to fear odors from humans showed measurably higher stress responses than when exposed to neutral odors. They even showed a preference for using one nostril over the other, the right nostril, a response linked to the brain hemisphere that processes threatening information. Now, the researchers were careful to note that cats are only modestly sensitive to human emotional cues. A cat may not rush over the way a dog does. It may sit quietly, watch you from a distance, change its behavior just slightly. But it noticed. Something registered. Horses are the example that surprises most people. A horse is not a pet in the usual sense. It is a prey animal. It is a large, powerful, flight-based creature whose survival depends on reading the emotional state of the herd. Tension spreads fast in horses. Fear spreads fast. Calm spreads fast. So it should not be surprising that horses are remarkably good at reading faces. Researchers showed horses photographs of happy and angry human expressions. The horses reacted differently to each. Angry faces raised their heart rate. Angry faces triggered the same left gaze response seen in dogs. Their right brain hemisphere was engaged. They were registering a threat. And in a later study, horses shown a photograph of an angry face and then introduced to that same person hours later, now with a neutral expression, still treated that person with more caution. They remembered. They updated a social file on that individual based on a photograph alone. That is not a dumb animal. That is a system built for survival. The same principle shows up across many social animals. Elephants, primates, and dolphins all show signs of reading emotional states in their groups. Fear spreads through a troop. Alarm spreads through a herd. A tense group member makes others tense. This is not human-style understanding. It is something older, more efficient. It is how social animals stay alive together. Which brings us to the most important distinction in all of this. An animal detecting your emotion and an animal understanding your emotion are not the same thing. When your dog approaches you while you're crying, it may not be thinking, "My human is grieving because of a specific loss." It may be responding to the sound of the cry, the chemical change in your sweat, the stillness of your body, the break in the routine, the distressed state spreading through the room like a signal. That is real. That perception is genuine. But it is perception at a physical level. It is the body being read, not the story inside the mind. And here is why that hits so hard. Humans want to be understood without having to explain themselves. That is one of the deepest things people look for in another. And when an animal walks over in your worst moment, without you saying a word, without needing a reason, it feels like something profound. Maybe it is. Not in the way we imagine. Not because the animal knows what you've been through, but because it noticed the truth your body was broadcasting, the voice that changed, the smell that shifted, the rhythm that broke. Maybe your dog does not know the story in your head. Maybe your cat does not understand the reason you went quiet. Maybe the horse does not know what memory just came back, but they know something changed. And in their world, that may be what emotion is.